Julie, it's lovely to see you. Welcome, Julie Robinson, CEO of the Independent Schools Council. Thank you so much for agreeing to spend a bit of time chatting with me today about coaching.
It's a great pleasure. Thank you for having me, Charlie.
So it's great, it's wonderful. So the idea we're gonna talk for 15 or 20 minutes here, and really to help people, either people in education or people elsewhere in leadership, have a really good understanding about what it means to receive coaching when you're in one of these senior positions. So I'm really looking forward, because I know you know lots about this and you've had personal experiences of being coached. So I'm really looking forward to hearing what you're going to say.
Oh, thank you, Charlie. Well, coaching is one of my favourite things. It's something I really look forward to as part of my professional development.
Oh, that's great to hear. That's great to hear. Well, let's start off a little bit with thinking about education leaders in general. You know very well, you're a head teacher. You now run this significant organization. What is it about coaching that you see that is such a strong support mechanism for leaders in education?
Well, coaching gives you the opportunity to have a time of structured reflection all about your own challenges, the complexities, the sort of interrelated activities that you're dealing with day by day. And it gives you a moment to stop and review and analyze your own performance, and really to identify areas that you can then prioritize, find patterns. And I don't think we get that opportunity very often in our working lives. You have to schedule it in. You have to be quite disciplined to keep to those times. But they become moments that punctuate all the complexities of the various things you're going through. And they help you to sort of draw out strands of performance so that you can focus on how you're doing against your own expectations and the sorts of strategies you might try. And then you get to the next coaching session and then you can review where you were last time and how you've got to. So it's very much about your own internal workings. So it's a very personalized kind of CPD, very meaningful, very real and true, and hyper relevant to what's going on in your professional life. So it's always well targeted because you bring the issues yourself to those sessions.
Yeah, thank you. And these are wonderful words, aren't they? The idea that there is complexity in this leadership role, but you get this absolute focus on you and your time and your agenda. So I know you meet with many leaders in education and lots of people talk to you. What have you heard? What have you heard about people who engage in receiving coaching as part of their professional development?
I often talk to people like me who have come to coaching relatively late in their careers, so at least halfway through their career. And we will all say, I wish I'd been doing this since the very beginning, as a sort of a partnership through my own personal development, professional development. I'm told by education leaders that coaching is very personally rewarding, important to them. Once they start, they seem to stick with it over a long term. Once we're introduced to it and experience it, we come to realize that actually we all need that time of reflection. So the kinds of education leaders I speak to, heads, for example, will say they're very excited about how it has benefited them and their own performance and sort of optimized their performance in various areas, very often communication skills. And they're also particularly excited about sharing that and cascading it down. And a lot of them have coaching and then they want to train to be a coach. And they want to share that across the whole, in the case of school, the whole community, the whole staff team. And I must say that's a sort of, that's kind of where I am as well, because where you find processes that work for you, you then want to share that across your organization so that everyone can help build optimum performance.
Yeah. And that's fascinating, isn't it? Because the experience of receiving coaching then encourages these many heads to want to then learn to be coaches, A, because they like the skill, and B, because they can see that many more people can benefit from being coached, all of their teachers and all of their colleagues.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sure that in a teaching environment, children benefit also,
Yes.
because, you know, we're the role models. It's the same in every workplace, I think. You know, if you can set a good example, then it rubs off on other people. They observe how you speak, the kind of language you use, the way you are with people, and so you are able to cascade that learning out.
Yeah, I agree. And I think one of the really important things about coaching is that it isn't just done in the dark room of the coaching corner where the two people are sitting. Actually, coaching styles of leadership, coaching styles of conversation happen around and about the school all the time. So the modeling is absolutely there. Thank you for that. I really wanted to just emphasize this point, or just check in this point. You're talking about high performing leaders, right? You're talking about people who are good at their jobs, not people who are struggling, people who are only coming to coaching because there's some sort of gap. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, it's seen as very much a part of developing optimum performance. Quite often I'm talking to people who are very successful, they are at a high level. You might say they're right at the top of their careers,
Yes.
and they want to stay fresh.
Yes.
I think they're very self-aware, and they know their strengths and they know the areas they want to work on.
Yes.
And I suppose they just want to continue to improve. And coaching is a way of achieving really very personalized support, you know, because it makes you reflect, and it helps you to find your way through from a point where you already know quite a lot. So you know what works, and intuitively then you can find the best way for you to deal with a whole range of issues that you're dealing with. So yeah, these are people, these are successful people who just want to become even better.
Yes, and that is wonderful, isn't it? The idea that I'm sure it's what many schools, what many chairs of governors want. They want to see their heads being high performing, but still aspirational to improve, and then using coaching and other things to carry on improving. Thank you for all those descriptions. Sorry.
Well, I was going to say, I'm a governor at 2 schools, and one of the things that we're very aware of is the pressures on all the staff, but particularly the senior staff. So we're very keen to ensure that there is targeted support for staff, and we see it as very important for recruitment, retention, and developing positive performance, that coaching is available.
Yes. So there's a whole big picture here, isn't it? There is this thing about performance, but then there's also this big thing about feeling confident and solid in your job and feeling nurtured and cared for. And if the schools that you're governor at, that is put in place, and then your colleagues have wonderful opportunities to really feel cherished, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, you can find one-off training sections for various aspects, but what coaching gives is over time a whole series of sessions that help you explore for yourself, in your own words, on your own terms, the specific challenges you're facing every day. And I don't think there's another form of CPD that can be as well targeted and effective. And I think that's why so many people, as soon as they're introduced to it, they're off and they're committed to it.
Yes, it's a why didn't I do it before moment, isn't it? That
Definitely.
Absolutely. So if it's all right, let's personalize this a bit and talk about not necessarily why you didn't do it before, but why you've chosen it now. I mean, you know, we first met when you were Director of Learning Development at IAPS, and now you've been the CEO of Independent Schools Council for a number of years, and I think you started having your coach in 2019 or so. So what was it that made you finally plunge and say, yes, I will have regular coaching?
Well, I'd had that experience of different types of professional training. So I'd done an MEd, I'd done a master in educational leadership. We'd had several sort of day courses, short courses. And although those things are really interesting, I didn't really feel they had the lasting effect that I wanted. I wanted to keep moving forward in a sort of sequential way. So with a developing understanding of what coaching is, I came to realize here was something where you could take your psychometric findings and actually start discussing them and reflecting on them and how they affect you and your performance. So I think the reason why I didn't do it before was pure ignorance. developing an understanding of it. I then had to convince my bosses that it was something that would be helpful for me. And of course, coaching in detail doesn't get discussed out, what's between you and your coach, that's private for you. And I was just really fortunate that I got that support in 2019. And I've had sessions, I have an hour a month roughly. I've saved that time in my diary. It's ring-fenced, it's really important for me. I'm very clear about what I'm doing, and this is important for me. And then I've built a series. I've had the same coach all the way through, which is really, really helpful. I think because she and I now know how I operate. I mean, we've got a lot of background we've built up with each other. So I came to it. I actually asked to have coaching, and now I'm finding increasingly, I've been in this job 7 years, increasingly it's something that is an expectation of senior leaders in education. I'm finding more and more people are talking about the coaching they're having. So I think it is becoming more prevalent as people recognise just how effective it is, and what a supportive process it is to go through, because you can't really have that conversation with anyone else. There's a limit to how much you want to lean on friends, professional colleagues, or your spouse over the issues you're dealing with in detail and what you're going to try. Whereas the coaching gives you that safe piece of time where it's just all about you and what you're going through. So I've been having that since 2019, and I found it enormously, enormously helpful. I find it fascinating to be able to come up with something that I think, oh, I might try doing this next time a particular challenge comes up, and then I can try it, and then I can reflect on how effective that was, and try and keep myself on track with various habits that I want to develop positively.
Your passion and your enthusiasm for engaging this coaching is so clear to see, isn't it? Especially all the hurdles you've had to jump through, identifying it, working it out, persuading your seniors that you should have this. But really important, though, that for those who are listening to this who haven't had coaching, we're not talking about a massive onerous amount of time, an hour a month, that type of thing, and maybe an hour on either side to do the thinking and so on. So it's not a heavy time commitment, but the support is significant. So I'd love it if you wouldn't mind describing what a coaching session's like for you. Some people listening to this will have been coached and know what it's like. Others, they wouldn't have had that experience. So your coach, well, let's name her Beth Hood, wonderful coach. When you're in that room or that Zoom room with her for an hour, what would we see if we were a fly on the wall? What would we notice?
It would be like two old friends catching up, except I get to do all the talking. So yeah, we've developed a good working relationship, and I've found it easy to share, perhaps because you know that it's just the two of you. So I've already established this relationship where I'm able to share various issues that I'm coming up against, and perhaps barriers of various kinds. So it would start with a review. There might be something that I'd made a pledge to deal with since the last session. So usually I'll think about it the night before, so that I'll be ready with my review, and I'll perhaps reflect back on where we ended last time, what I was going to try, how that went, how far I went with it. And then inevitably I start questioning whether that was my optimum performance, whether there was more I could do to improve it, or whether I chickened out of something, and why my personal traits may have led me in one direction or another, and how effective it was. And that can take up the first 10-15 minutes of the session. And then we tend to move on to agreed issues that we might have agreed in advance, or we might say, Beth might say, okay, what's the big priority for you at the moment? What's the thing that's on your mind? And sometimes I'm quite surprised at what comes up. this is where you start to explore the patterns of your working life, which will be different from everyone else's. Very often it's about communication, it's about time management. During COVID, it was so helpful to have the sessions, because we were all having to move into this world of emails and Zooms, and I think all finding it quite wearing. And I was interested to explore why sitting in front of a screen all day was so exhausting, and then how to manage that time. So now we're in this hybrid world. So, you know, the world around us is changing, ways of working are changing, and the issues I'm dealing with also, and the people I'm dealing with, all of those things interact into the kinds of challenges I'm facing. So I will pick something up and I will describe what I feel is challenging about it, and I'll be encouraged to sort of explain where I want to go with that, where I'd like to be, what my aspiration is for improvement in whatever that area is. And it can be very wide ranging. And then we start to explore, well, how I can do that, and what I might try. And I might be asked little nudging questions to help me along the way, to find some ways through, some strategies that I can then go off and try next time. And then sometimes we'll talk about background reading or theories that are relevant to this area of life that I might look at as background, should I wish to, before the next session.
Yes. So a little bit of extra stimulus as well. So that chimes very well. Is a good description, I think, of what these coaching sessions can look and feel like. And one bit I wanted to dig into a little bit more is the sort of the nurture versus the challenge thing. How we're not evaluating Beth here, but what's your experience like about how much nurture you get and how much challenge you get within each coaching session?
Well, we've talked about that at the beginning of each year. And when you start having coaching with someone, you know, it has to be of value to you. So articulating what you are looking to achieve is part of the initial process. And so I've told Beth that I'm expecting to be challenged. I feel that's the value I get out of it. So I'm not just looking for a bit of sympathy. Oh yeah, that sounds hard. I'm looking for someone who will say, okay, so how could you do that even better? So I'm expecting challenge, I'm getting challenge. And it doesn't feel like criticism, because I know this is me working with someone who is there to help me perform. I don't know if I've described that very well. So I don't feel like I'm being criticized except by myself. I'm being drawn towards better performance. So it's challenge, but we'll smile about it, you know. And so I might say, oh, well, I think I could do that better. Oh yeah, but how could you do that perfectly? You know, how could you be even better? So it's always a sense of positive challenge. But yeah, I mean, I think the value of the coaching for me is to remind myself to keep moving forward, keep progressing, keep improving. So that's an important ingredient to every session.
There is something then, isn't it, about drawing out and celebrating and acknowledging these strengths that you have that maybe are sitting below the wire. I suppose the point that I can hear from what you're saying is this idea that even if your coach gives you high challenge, it's because that's what you've asked for. A good coach like Beth will, as you say, will check in and say, do you want lots of challenge or do you need less challenge? And so it still remains your agenda how much you get challenged, which is, I think, it's one of the really important bits of coaching. People can come in and have a very sort of gentle and soft approach to their coaching, or it can be really, really rigorous and really sort of push us a long way. So thank you for describing that so well.
And at the same time, if I'm tending to be overcritical of myself, I can be encouraged to see that actually it might not be that bad. So there's a balance there. I think we're working within a band, sort of an expectation of performance.
Yes, I like that idea of actually being challenged to be able to see your strengths. I think that's a really wonderful thing to be able to do. Well, let's spend the last couple of questions. Perhaps let's talk about now the other end, the return on investment thing that people are very interested in. So for you, what benefits do you see? You've described what you like about it, but coming out of coaching, what benefits do you see you're getting both professionally and personally?
Oh, well, I mean, if anyone said, I don't think we're going to carry on with that, I'd be really concerned, because I just don't want to drop my coaching now, because I do see it as part of my professional effectiveness. It's part of the process I go through. I set up my diary. I've got a PA sort of managing, bringing everything together, and the coaching is me ensuring performance. So I have an annual appraisal, and I'll always include how I think the coaching is going. For me personally, the return has been, it's sort of refreshing in a really busy world with lots and lots of challenge that can potentially be quite exhausting. Some issues you're dealing with aren't going to go away in a hurry, and you have to persevere, and you have to sort of try lots of different ways to continue. You can't just give up. So the coaching conversations provide energy, support, give me a sort of a mental self-talk that helps me to ensure that my priorities are right, that I'm measuring my progress, that I'm providing myself with fair expectations. So it's all the internal stuff. So it is quite hard to describe, but I'd say the return I've got is it has made me more effective. It's helped me articulate how to do the job I do, which is a difficult job to describe. It's like running a trade body, lots and lots of moving parts, like lots of jobs, and the same in headship, really. So for me, the return has been a sense that I continue to develop professionally. And I don't think there's anything else in my working life that has that aim. And I do think it's very important. As I say, I've been in my job for 7 years now. It's a way of moving on, continuing with a sense of forward momentum through your working life with a clear focus. And it's a bit like sort of academically analysing how you perform at work. Yes. And I just simply don't get that anywhere else in my working life.
This is a message that's coming really loud and clear, isn't it? Is that leaders face complexity and other opportunities to be able to read, even if you've got a wonderful boss and a great supportive team around you, actually the real focus on you, it's a really rare moment. And I suppose I'm struck by the fact that even though you have an hour a month, actually it sort of permeates the whole month, doesn't it? It permeates lots and lots of your thinking throughout the time.
Yes, the themes that, because I've come up with those as my priority themes and issues, as they pop up again after the session, I'm thinking, oh yeah, now what was I going to do about this? And then I'm also thinking, I want to report this back. And really, I'm reporting to myself to sort of judge how that went in that month, from session to session.
Thank you. That's a wonderful vision. I think it chimes with our vision of the idea that coaching supports the well-being, the progress, and the development of everyone in schools, from teachers to students. I think it's a great thing. Julie, I'm going to say thank you very much for engaging in this, for talking so openly and so clearly. It's a really, really important message. And obviously, I'm going to wish you happy coaching. Thank you so much.
Pleasure. Thank you.